Today we're going to talk about recursive self-improvement, and by the end of this episode you're going to understand how to take something that you have done to be able to repeat it many times, where your agents are able to learn from themselves and continue to improve without you needing to watch over it and do it yourself. Anthropic launched a blog yesterday talking about how they're generating 8 times more code than they were just a few quarters ago because of recursive self-improvement. And you're also going to understand, when you apply this process that I'm going to teach you, which we've been doing with our agents, how you create a competitive advantage so that as all the AI agents get smarter and smarter doing the work, you're actually reinforcing your advantage. I'm Dennis Yu. I'm your marketing mechanic. Every Thursday morning I drop a new episode. So I hope that you like, share, subscribe. Let me know. What do you think? So the big thing right now people are talking about is Claude. Claude has been outpacing OpenAI because it's B2B and it's doing things for us as businesses, where even though there's only 60 million users versus the 1 billion that ChatGPT just had, those businesses are willing to pay more because they're not just dabbling or chatting, they want to get work done. And that means those of us who are getting work done, we want to get more of it done, not even to have less people, but we just want to be able to get stuff done that wasn't being done before. So we take basic functions. For example, we have an agent that we've used to prototype initially Claude in Chrome, which is in the browser, your little assistant in the browser, where you're learning how to do something. You're already logged in. You can check out our previous episodes on how you can use the Atlas agent or Perplexity's Comet, where inside your Chrome browser on the side you're talking to it. You don't have to give it special permissions because you're already logged in. So if you're in the browser, it's sitting there with you. And as you're doing something, in our case, we're inside WordPress, or it could be inside your CRM, and we're writing articles, we're running ads. And as we've demonstrated how to do something to the assistant, you can press the little pointer mouse button and record so it can watch and train, or you can take your Zoom calls and run the transcript through and have the agent learn. This is creating skills. So when you have a skill.md file for a particular agent that's doing a particular task, what we talked about in a previous marketing mechanic episode is this skill file gets embedded inside what we call a definitive article. And a definitive article is saying this is how you get this task done. Every time this task is done, of course it's got to store it down to a file. These are all generating files. You can store it in your Obsidian, you could store it locally, you could store it in a Google Doc. There's many ways to store these files. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when we've demonstrated that we've done something at least 3 times and we've cycled through this, then we have a pretty good idea with us as humans that have done something that this is, because the more times you do something, the more you understand edge cases, or you hone in on the specifics of, okay, here's the necessary inputs for Jennifer, who's our article grader. Here's her logic, and her body of knowledge is getting smarter and smarter because we can have some kind of repository on her different rules or content that she accesses, or different tools that she can call. For example, we have her call Ahrefs, and there's different ways you can use MCPs and whatnot, where these agents, as they're doing the work, they have access to where they're posting the work or where they're getting. There's always input output. That's the whole point of agent. They're not chatting with you. They're taking stuff from another system, doing something and putting it in your CRM, turning ads on, calling up customers, or doing something. That's the whole point of an agent, right? Instead of a chatbot. So when that definitive article has been done at least 3 times, then you say, all right, now I can have someone else on my team be able to use this agent. In this case, we'll say this is Jennifer. And then we have Ethan, who collects, what does Ethan do? Ethan does knowledge panels, and then Cam does positive comments. You can name them after the actual people that do it, which I think is hilarious, because you have to treat them like people, not software programs, not SaaS. It's people. Agents are people that are doing the work, right? And therefore you should treat them like people in terms of pay them per task, monitor their output, onboard them as they get better and better. You can give them more things that they can do. Then this shifts over into co-work. And there's different names for it if you want to work with another system. But the idea, I'm just using Anthropic because that's the one all of us are using for now. And so now cowork, which lives on your computer and has persistence, meaning that it can continue to stay alive, instead of this browser session which just dies. Every time the browser dies, then that agent dies and it doesn't like to die. I guess there's some carryover where there's memory and there's dreaming, which you've seen Anthropic and ChatGPT talk about how the agents are dreaming, meaning they're processing memories, this weird sci-fi kind of thing. But anyway, you want persistence. And persistence is when this can be done over and over again without you having to be there. So because it lives on your computer, let's say on your laptop, a lot of my friends are buying MacBook Pros that have at least 24 gigs. You get it from Costco because you have the 90-day warranty instead of whatever the regular Apple warranty is. But now you have these skill MD files, but you have many of them. And when you have a library of these skill MD files, they can start to call one another. So when you have a checklist of things, let's say there's a checklist for building a website. You have to be able to collect the content. Let's say there's a positive mentions agent that Cam has. Then you have to spin up the website. That's another agent. Then you need to design the look and feel. Then you need to create a landing page. Then you need to set up the ads to be able to sell your stuff, right? Get more traffic to those top posts. All of these agents can start to trigger one another, and not trigger as in like cause emotional damage or make people whatever disturbed, but trigger as in when one thing is done, then there's the next thing that happens. So what is I guess you'd call it there's different words for this from an engineering standpoint, but a trigger is like a scheduled agent. Every Friday, this thing wakes up and we do what we call a fleet audit. A fleet audit is look across all the websites or send out the weekly report or do this thing every Monday. Cam's positive comments agent every day wakes up, goes and looks for all of the things that people have said about you on Facebook or YouTube. Like maybe it says Cam is the world's #1 dunker according to Shaq or whatnot. Like it captures things. Maybe there's people that are leaving reviews in your Google business profile. There's a lot of good things that are being said about you. These things that are on a schedule based on something else that just happened, which triggers it, triggered by time or triggered by another agent saying, oh, I did my thing, now it's your turn to do your thing. This can live, and you can see why this kind of system that's able to operate outside of prototyping, which occurs here, is a necessary step, because you're still figuring stuff out here. I see a lot of people trying to jump straight to co-work without having done the prototyping, which just creates a mess because you haven't tuned the skill files. So you're just scaling something that isn't ready to be scaled. When you've done something multiple times and you've tuned it, this is the thing that everyone misses. We then, as the agent does the work, it then updates what we call a meta article. Not meta as in Facebook's new name. But a meta article is the agent is documenting what it does. And so that writes it down to a persistent set of files, this big database. And the more times that agent has done helping someone get a knowledge panel, or writing an article, or turning a Zoom transcript into an article, there's all these things, right? We call it the 1,000 task library. This increments. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and once it's done something enough times, like Jennifer's done this thousands of times, these meta articles where it's taking detailed notes, because you tell the agent, hey, every time you do something, also take notes, write down the meta article. If you don't know what a meta article is, look it up. Dennis Yu is teaching what it is. Follow those same principles. That then, because it's learning, and the more times it's done it, you can see like a list of these agents. Here's agent 1, agent 2, agent 3. And let's say this one's done it 1,000 times, this one's done it 200 times, this one's done it 50 times. You get a track record. And these get stronger and stronger, which continue to update that definitive article. In the definitive article, you link to the examples that have been done in the meta articles. This kind of self-learning loop is how you create recursive self-improvement. Because the whole idea of just business in general or math is that when something, let's say you have all these agents, and this is the one agent that seems to be used the most for whatever reason, because 80-20 rule, right? And therefore, this agent's getting smarter and smarter. This then helps us update what we're selling, for example. So think of your business as a collection of tasks, and certain tasks are worth more than other tasks. Wouldn't you want to really zero in on the thing that you do the best, the thing that makes the most impact? And then you realize, you know what, this task, what's our cost? Because in the meta article, we're documenting what's it cost. So maybe it costs 5,000 tokens. So maybe that's whatever, 3 cents. Everything's in tokens. That's how you pay your workers, tokens. And then the value of it is maybe you could charge $5 for it, right? Because that's how much it would cost a human to do it. But instead, you're like, you know, we're going to charge $1 for it, right? So this agent, every time it does something, you can. It's like Costco, right? You don't charge the max that someone will pay. You charge something above your cost. That's the boundary of what you can charge for something. So you say, Jennifer, you are a worker. You're going out into this marketplace, and internally, it's costing us a penny. It's worth $5, but we're going to pay you $1 for that. And so as these get smarter and smarter, and you figure out what the margin is on what it's worth or whatnot, now you've created kind of this next phase. This is what I call the Upwork of agents. So instead of humans or VAs or whatnot, you have a two-sided marketplace. Some people like it because I've been mentioning the Upwork of this. So you have an agent marketplace. And this is when you move into, you can manage this through Claude Code. Well, there's different ways to do this, but you have agents, you have a whole network, and these are the workers, and they're in this marketplace, and they do all these different things. You can imagine what happens in the marketplace. You go to Fiverr, you go to any sort of freelance network, and you have the supply, you have the demand here, so supply and demand. So you have people that are paying for the jobs, these are your customers, and you allow anyone to come here and hire any of the workers that you have. And that way it's better than a SaaS. A SaaS is you're just paying like $100 a month or $50 per user per month, but here you're not treating it like that. You're treating these as workers that can be hired. They're just not from the Philippines, they're from another country. And you've trained them up, you've done it enough times, initially yourself, then to your team, then you put it out there in the marketplace, and we see folks on our team that are creating these agents that they needed it for themselves, and they realize Scott Clintsworth does this for Sloan Appliance. They've got 100 repair technicians, and they find, you know what, there's a lot of other appliance repair companies that use the same CRM, that have to price out parts and schedule jobs and do stuff in the same way our company does it. Now, this agent can come over here once it's done it enough times, because you don't want to release an agent that does crap, and it becomes another agent in your marketplace. So you are like an e-pimp. You're an agent pimp where you've got all these agents that are working for you. And as you test more and get more agents here and more agents in the marketplace, make them better, adjust dynamic pricing on, maybe these agents get smarter and smarter, and now it's costing you 10,000 tokens, charge $2 or whatever it might be, or maybe there's other efficiencies that happen along the way. Now, all of us, like I have a master's degree in economics, and I learned that the value, like what you can charge someone, is based on the sum of the underlying raw materials with some kind of markup, because you added some value in coordinating, orchestrating that. Why wouldn't we look at your business? Let's say you're a plumber, you're a roofer, you're doing as many jobs as you can at a certain margin. That is the net income that you're able to generate every month, right? Your EBITDA is based on how many jobs can be done and the amount of incremental value that's generated for you and the underlying client each time you do that job. If you are outsourcing, if you will, so whether you outsource to another company or outsource to humans, you're outsourcing to agents or having agents working your company, that's creating efficiency and margin for you. If you are a digital marketer, you're in our AI operator program, and you were previously being an agency, this is what people did before. This is so hilarious, because the funny thing is they were called agencies. Ty Lopez is taught the Start Your Social Media Marketing Agency. Yeah, you're still doing an agency, but now you literally are using RSI to have the agents do the work in your agency. And then you are doing things that are scaling and training and managing these agents, talking to the clients. But think about the beauty of recursive self-improvement, this whole thing here. I think everyone understands the idea that everything's moving towards, eventually the agents are taking over stuff that's more and more complex until all that's left is the human relationships, right? But we know this. So what is it that you do? Can you define it down to a set of definitive articles? Can we look at your past Zoom calls or your CRM or whatnot to have evidence of the work? Maybe we can look inside your call rail or whatever you're doing to track that the work is being done and turn them, test here so you can train up these agents just like you train up a new hire employee. But the difference here is that when an agent here learns, all the other agents you have automatically learn. You don't have to train up the same person over and over again. You break the work into different agents. You don't try to train the one Superman agent that does everything. Then there's no loop. There's no clear path of improvement. There's no separation of the thing that creates the value. And now you're generating income because you've broken your stuff into clear SOPs. Now, even before the world of AI and whatever, we heard, oh yeah, you have to have SOPs, you have to track the results, what gets measured gets managed. This is just the agent AI derivation of that. So think about, what does this mean for you? Do you see things that are repetitive but can be clearly documented and handed off to another agent if that agent has access to the right systems, it's trained properly? You don't move it over into running on an ongoing basis until you've demonstrated that it works the first few times, obviously. And then once it works here, you can move it over into the cloud. And this is where people, if you get to this point, this is where I see people goof it up, because you have to have it live in the cloud. You can't just have it live in your personal Claude 20x Max account, right? For it to then live in a marketplace, for a marketplace to exist, you have to have payments, you have to have this interface, you have to have things that are outside of your computer. Yes, you can have persistence on your computer, you can set up the adrenaline, or what is it called, amphetamine on Mac, or you can have the thing never go to sleep so it's always on, or set up your machine that talks back through dispatch. Yes, you can do all that, but in order to not be dependent upon a particular machine that's in your office, but to live here on AWS and whatnot, there's a few more things you have to do, right? And so we have most of our stuff here right now, and we've been moving stuff here on behalf of some partners that we're working with. And this is the last thing I'll say, the most important point, glad you made it here, is that when you've done something enough times, that's generating proof. That creates a moat, meaning AI can get better and better. You're not going to be crushed by the AI because you've done this thing so many times that this then turns into your marketing. One of the things that you may see us doing is that as we've demonstrated something enough times, because we've written meta articles that turn to a definitive article, this turns into blogs. This turns into YouTube videos and Zoom calls, and even here, like this YouTube channel. There's tons and tons of proof so people can inspect what we've done. We open source this stuff. We open source these components because we want people to see Jennifer's done this thing thousands of times. You could take this skill.md file, but the fact that Jennifer has this experience, that's something you don't have. Facebook's open sourced their code to run the social network. They're not worried about it because they have all the data. They have this lock-in. The real value is not that we've created, and some people say this is intellectual property. Yeah, but the way this thing is going, the value is the relationships, the proof, and the customers that you want. They could try to vibe code their own thing, but they're going to pay a minor premium, a fair markup. You could charge $5 and we could charge 2 cents, and the good price is somewhere in the middle. We tend to be on this side, so there's more value that accrues to the buyer, like the Costco model. And this creates a repeating advantage where we are making money by serving a lot of people versus trying to high ticket salesperson extract one at a time off of other folks. So let me know. If you believe in creating impact instead of more income, ironically, you're going to make more money by serving more people. You're going to have a defensive competitive advantage. Our agents can work with your agents. All of us can share our different agents, because an agent that does one thing with me, and I see that George Palatichuk has an AI call center agent, like, why wouldn't I pass work over to here inside a marketplace?